Hey, welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and this is going to be another Malorian Weekly. Now, what we've been talking about the last couple of videos were things like the CID process, how to make that better, then really turning that inward on us, the player base, and saying, how can we do a better job on trying to balance things? And it was really brought up in that video that, just because other people say these are the base rules, this is a game that we want to enjoy. Shouldn't we be doing something like we see in other games where the actual player bases will actively go in a way of trying to grade their own lists so that they can know, like, will this be an even game? And what that really led to, and one of the comments we saw in the last video is like, well, Malorian, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do this via a comp system. Now, what I want to do in this video is really take that next step to say what this comp system is and how we could actually be dealing with it, how to apply to Warmachine, and if it's even really a good idea at the end of the day to try and do this type of thing. So before we get too far, what's a comp system? What does this even mean? Well, if you really think of the rules you use to make your lists, you'd be thinking about things like, you got to pick a caster, you fill out the battle group, you need to be somewhere within 5 points of 75 points. You got to follow the FA system, things like that, right? Base things from the game that they tell us this is how you should be building your list. And the reason those rules are there is that the company has decided in order for you to play a balanced game, you need to follow these rules. Really, that's their comp system. The way that your compilation of your list should be based on to have a nice, fair game. Well, the next step is like, well, what if they didn't get it quite right? What can we as players then add on top of this to make this even better? And I think another good example to kind of show these type of things is, say, for example, what the Line of Sight folks did with the Brawl Machine. So very simple things saying like, okay, that's the base rules, but now apply onto this, no huge bases, FA1, there's this epic/ban list type thing you should be keeping in mind. And so that's a different rule set on top that says how you're allowed to be making your list. And again, the whole premise and the whole goal of what you're trying to do with this is trying to have something at the end that makes a fairer system, a fairer game at the end. Now, there's lots of ways to do this. Like I've been talking about, there's not just one, there's many things. I've been in various games for many, many years, be it 40K, Fantasy, X-Wing, Warmachine, all these things I've been playing, and there's been different comp rules from all these, some being very simple, like what we just talked about with Brawl Machine, and some getting very, very complex. And we're going to be talking about kind of like bits and pieces of the ideas of how comp systems can work. And let's start from the very simple one where it says, this is banned, right? Something where like, this is the full rule set. This is what you could do. And we're going to take our red marker and say, nope to this and nope to that. Basically, simple things that you're removing out of it. The other thing to be just like that is something where you were saying you have to take this. So a good example of that then, which is not like a ban list, would be something where you need to be taking from this list. So like the ADR season where sure, you have all these casters, but you have to pick from these 4 type of idea. So the idea with that simple forced areas or crossed off areas is the idea that some things are not balanced, and in order to make things more balanced, we're going to be limiting your selection in some way, hardlined. You can't use these things, they're too powerful, they're too unbalanced, or you have to take from these things because then that way, at least like an ADR, when we compare against everything else, that's more balanced. That's like the base level. And something I should really say right off from the very bat of this is that this is a very difficult thing to do. Starting from the start and saying this is banned, sure, if there's like a rising star that's obviously ahead of the curve, you can do these type of things, but it takes a lot of knowledge, and that's going to get to more of the conversation later. I'm skipping ahead. I'm sorry. Now, the next step that you might want to be thinking about is something like an either or. I've seen comp systems like this where it says, okay, either you can take somebody from this epic list or you can take a huge base, but you can't do both. And the idea around this is that we want you to be able to play with your toys, right? We're not going to say this thing's completely gone, but it's really powerful. And the best way we're going to do is limit the number of powerful things you can do. So you can only take this or this, and you can't take both. Something like that. Again, just hoping to bring down that power level to something that's a little bit more manageable. Now, in order, again, to do that, you have to have understanding. You have to know what actually is the most powerful. And if we want to push this to the next level is if you were to go out there and say, these are all the choices. And each of these choices is going to be given a value, a worth, a currency, whatever you want to call it, certain points. And then in the making of your list, you can only use so many points. So if I'm going through this and I'm trying to make some cuts, it's almost like I'm trying to go through and actually go through, like, say, like making up a hockey team or something like that. I'm like, wait, this person wants 50 million and this person just wants 1 million. So if I cut this person, I can take more of these, that type of idea. It's a lot like the last one. We have to take either or, because mathematically, you just can't take all these things worth all these points, forcing you to go further down. Now, the thing I always find interesting with this one here is that this is actually already in the game. It's the points for the actual models. Things that are powerful are worth more points. Things that aren't as powerful are worth less points. But again, the whole premise of what we're trying to do here with this player-generated comp system is the whole assumption that the company got it wrong, and we need a better way that we need to manage this and trying to make this work. Now, another way you can go with this, once you start getting granular, once you're starting to get to the point where it's not just to get in, you have to do X or you have to pick X or Y. Now we're at the point where we're actually giving points to everything. Now we can actually start making a gradient. And now we can start doing things like, okay, take whatever you want, but now we're going to know what your power level is based on these factors, these points, whatever you want to say associated with them. And now we can make sure that all the power players are playing against the power players at the top, all the people that are mid-level are playing against them, and all like the ones in like the fun group or however you want to call it at the bottom, they're playing against each other. We're using your defined power level of your list to make sure you're playing against other people with that same. And that starts where you're actually getting to what you want. You know, in the other layers, you're going to get people who are like, oh, if I can't take the best, I'm going to take the next best. Well, now we're actually getting to a spot where we're distinctly really making sure that we're now grouping people based on their relative power. And you're not going to have these simple things like, sure, we raise the ceiling of what the power could possibly be, but now you could still have the person playing here playing against the person playing down here, right? We're getting more granular. Here's the next step. What if the power level that you're playing in your list actually affects the points that you get for playing the game? So here's a great example. You can go through and you can say, all right, based on all of the things that you took and all the things your opponent took, there is going to be a handicap, a difference between your point levels. And in some way, mathematically, we are going to be making up that handicap by awarding it to the other player. Or maybe it's a penalty against the person that's on the top, however you want to handle this. And there's been a lot of tournaments that do this, right? If you go in here, wins are worth, if it's a massacre win, you get 1,000 points. If it's a major win, it's a 700, however, breakdown. And then that win is going to be modified by the comp you took and blah, blah, blah. And then that way, at the end of the day, you know, even if a person didn't crushingly win all their games, maybe they had a couple of small wins and even a loss, they might actually end up winning the whole event because, look, they didn't come in here with like this super cheese army. They came in here with a lower base army. And now, you know, based on that, boom, they're actually the big winners for the day. This all sounds fantastic, right? And you can just keep on getting more and more and more complicated from now. This is where I'm going to pull out something. This is where I'm going to show you this trophy. It came from the basement. What is this? 2011 best overall that I won in a fantasy tournament. Let me tell you what happened there. I looked at this comp score and I looked at how it was set up. And it was mathematically set up in a way that if I took this bad army, even if I lost every game with like a massacre loss, I still was getting a win because all the points I was taking or gaining from taking the bad stuff was making up all those other points. So I could game the system, and I gamed it so hard that at the end of the day, I just won the whole thing. Here's my big trophy, and it really made them rethink that their whole strategy because of how I gamed it. Now, this is important because we're all gamers, and we need to realize that no matter what system we put in place, no matter what one I'm going to put out here, the people whose goal it is to win are going to be using that system to be taking the next best. We had talked about things where, like the very beginning, if I ban this top level thing here, well, people are just going to take the next level. And if I ban that, they're going to take the next level, and so on and so on. Sure, there's the other people who are playing their own way and doing their own fun thing or whatever. But again, the people who are their primary goal is to win by taking the strongest stuff, they're still going to do that. And so no matter which way I cut and slice and do this comp, I'm still going to have people going for that top level. And when you think about it, if I'm looking at a system of, let's just say, 1,000 choices, and I cut things down and say, you know what, too many people are playing up here, let's cut that down so it's just the bottom 100 choices. Well, that doesn't really change too much because I still have the people that are now going to take that top layer of whatever I'm still remaining to give them, right? And again, for all these other things, once I bring in points, they're going to look at points. And just like how right now, the value that they're looking for taking these models in the game already is what's the best thing I can do for these points. Well, it just adds a new factor in there. What's the best thing I can take for these points that are worth the least of the other type of points, and so on. It's just a new mathematical equation. It doesn't really balance things that well, as just changes the game for them. You can make the argument that it's taking the extremes out of it, and that's fair. That can definitely be the case, but unless you get it like bang on perfect, it doesn't really change it that much. Now, here's the other thing that is really, really important to get across in this, is that metagame is the king here. And somebody coming in and telling you this is how it should be comped because this is very powerful is extremely subjective. If I come in here and I'm like, you know what, based on what I'm always seeing here, Fiona is dominating, there's all these Archons and they're beating everybody, so Archons and Fiona need to be banned. Well, the problem is, well, maybe in your area, you don't really even have a strong mercenary player. That's not helping and changing anything for you. Worse yet, maybe you have a regular mercenary player where they just like Fiona, or they just like Archons because they're cool, and now they're being penalized because of this global meta, or maybe not even global, it's just localized to wherever the people are making the rules, and now they're the ones suffering for whatever this is. Or maybe it's even different, where if they look at this global data and they're like, if we look at everything, this is the best and this is what's always winning. But maybe in your meta, in your area where you play, people are already taking stuff that counteracts that. So really, penalizing that is just making it even worse. The stuff that's dominating in your area is the stuff that's already built to design to crush that, and now the stuff that was dominating before is still dominating. So this whole comp system just didn't really help at all. If anything, it's made those people there in a better spot. You know, like those type of things there, you have to really realize that it's not like this universal soup that we're all in. We're all in our own pockets. Maybe in a future world where we're all playing War Table and every tournament is open to the world, and this day I'm playing against somebody in Singapore, and the next day this is someone in Brazil. Sure, yeah. That will now start developing a more global meta that we have to start thinking about. However, that doesn't really apply so much when you're now looking at people that are playing as like the local 10 people that they play with in their area, or even smaller. Maybe it's like a basement full of 4 people that are playing. And so these things start losing the idea when the whole basis that comp was based off of was not on your particular meta. So do realize that. Here's something else to realize. This all started off with me talking about comparisons to Magic, and how Magic, the Gathering, the players are, specifically for Commander, really want to try and keep things fair, and so they have this scale out of 10. And all the super competitive players are going to be up in like this 8, 9, 10 area. They're the ones that are going to win the first few turns. And then as you go down from that, you get down to the bottom, the people that are really just like throwing in cards for fun. And there's not even like a real win strategy. And so based on those numbers, you can walk into a game and be like, hey, are you a 7? Great, I'm a 7 too. Oh, you're an 8? Okay, well, I think my 7 should play okay. Do you have a 6 or a 7? No? Okay, we'll play it out. So that system exists, and it'd be great for us, everybody, to have a perfect system like that. Here's the flaw in the argument. that system is not perfect. There are so many different people out there that define their things differently. You can talk to a person and be like, I got a 5. And they're like, great, I got a 5 too. But your understanding what a 5 is very, very, very different. It goes again to that whole idea of meta and stuff like that. If your area is all about guns, you're going to be having a meta that deals with that. Same thing. If they have a meta that's all about in Magic doing combos, it's going to be based around that and how well combos work. So it's really difficult to try and have something that applies to everybody. And the same thing we see there is that when somebody actually tries to go in and try and make hard, fast rules, they realize very quickly, oh, we can't really make some very hard, fast rules. Here's something general. Here's our best take on it. And I think at the end of the day, after we talked about what comp is, the different ways you can do it, the main thing we have to be looking at here is that the important thing about comp lists is not the actual rules themselves, it's what they're actually trying to achieve. They're not trying to achieve the idea that we're going to be taking out the most powerful armies, right? Because there always will be a next. What they're trying to achieve is we're trying to make enjoyable games. And so what you need to do, if you're like, you know what, Malorian, this is right. This is what we should be doing. We need a system in place that's going to be giving us enjoyable games. You need to decide this for you. And whether that means understanding that, look, no matter what rules I put in here about banning this, you can only take 1 of 2 of this, there's points and you can only take whatever, it's going to apply to your score. However you mathematically do that, you are walking into this looking for an enjoyable, casual game perhaps, whereas the person that you're applying it to is coming into this and saying, look, I want to be the chess master, I want to beat you. And you just are coming at this with different philosophies, and you're not going to find that middle ground regardless, unless you change the conversation. And you say, look, I'm walking into this wanting to be doing a enjoyable game. Enjoyable to me is a game that's going to be going, not being done in like turn 2 or turn 3, something where we're playing back and forth until like turn 6, maybe even 7. Is this the type of game you're looking for? And if that answer is no, from that I want to be the chess master type competitive player on the other side, maybe you shouldn't play each other. Or you need to walk into it with that understanding that you're doing different things here. Maybe the best thing you can do is have a better understanding that, okay, these people want to make aggressive lists that win in turn 2 or 3, that's not what I'm about. I'm about a slow peace trade. These players I know do that. So I'm going to be going and doing these things. Maybe that's what you need to do. That's the self-regulation. When we really try and talk about these things, we're not going to be fixing the hard, fast rules and how people are trying to break the hard, fast rules by making another new set of hard, fast rules. The gamers are still going to game it. The conversation is what's going to be important here. And please, if you have anyone out there saying that, oh, no, that's wrong, Malorian, the way that we're going to have fun is we're going to have this comp score and it's going to ban these things and it's going to do this and do that. Please know that from experience, I can tell you this is not true. Already, we're seeing this with locally here with the Brawl Machine, where we're having the people saying like, but I have this huge base caster and I really just want to play him. Or I got this caster with TK, but I guess it's banned. You know, you think I'm going to do some magical thing. I just want to go do cool stuff on my side. And now I can't even do the cool stuff that I enjoy. So I'm not going to play this game because the way that you're trying to hard fast these rules are not working for my definition of enjoyment. And just like how I said for the other things, the way you fix that is going to be over the conversation. You can come into here and you can say, hey, look, I know the thing in here says that TK casters are banned, but I just picked up Thexus. I think he's cool and I want to try it. Are you cool with that? Yeah, sure. Okay, boom, there you go. So that's the real comp score, is a conversation and the understanding that you and your opponent are both human beings with your own ideas of what's enjoyable. And if you want to be having an enjoyable game for yourself, you can't walk in with the assumption that you both have the same viewpoints. You need to have that conversation. You need to work that out. Otherwise, if you walk into it blind, it's just like with anything else. I'm going to walk into a soccer game and I'm hoping for an enjoyable game of soccer, but I don't know if I'm going up against a pro player or somebody who's never played before or somebody that likes just passing around and, you know, like the running around and this cheering is more why they're there for. Who knows unless you have that conversation. So there you go. At the end of the day, the best comp system is just having an understanding that there's other human beings with their own feelings, and that's really it. I know you're going to have ideas on this. Please post them down below. I'd love to continue this conversation. And anyway, we'll catch you later. Bye.